Okay, back on the frame. Um, so at this point, I'm just going to import it in. I'm going to grab an empty object here and go to File, Import. I'm not File, Import, just Import, Test Frame, Open, and there it is. And this is the one that came out of Max. You can see it's got the back and everything. And since I've done it in pretty tight ink, it had so many polys already, if I just, go ahead and Control D to divide it some more, then I've got this nice crazy 12 million poly. That was probably too much. Let's see. Oops. Yeah, 3 minutes. Okay, so I delete the lower, make sure it's just this plain old thing, and if we look at the, it's pretty dense. And that's fine. This is going to be our high res and the base of our low res, so pretty simple. Next thing we're going to do is, and you can see that when you look at what I did in here previously, because this is the same file, you'll see that I imported a few of them and they didn't work, so that's when I went back and figured out that I should do it the other way. But I will just show you how to do it by default. I'm going to turn off the framing here. So I'm going to use, in this case, I'm going to use the Spotlight painter, and I'm going to pull this back out. And then I'm also going to come up to here and say, if I look at it, I'm going to come up to my transform, and I'm going to make sure that when I turn on my symmetry, it'll be the right way. So hold on. Let's do this. I'm going to import the image. So import and re-render rose top. Rose top. There it is. And it doesn't look like much, but it's over here. Okay, so that's the one I'm going to use. If I click on that and say plus, it puts it inside of my Spotlight editor. So now when I move it around, it's perfect. And kind of what I wanted to do is I could turn up the opacity so you can see it fully, or I can turn it back down so I can get an idea of where it is. Then I'm going to scale it just to be, as big as possible, but not so big that I have to go full way across the screen all the time. And then what you do, actually I'm going to probably go a little bit smaller, just a little bit. And what I could do here is then go to Z. If I push Shift Z, it hides the spotlight. If I push Shift Z again, it turns on the spotlight. If I push Z, it turns on the controls of the spotlight. And there's a lot of little cool things you can do inside of here. So now I'm back to just working on this. This is just a plane that's sitting on top of it. What I'm going to do now is zoom this sucker in and hopefully get something that fits on here decently. So there you go. That works pretty good. I'm going to go back to I'm going to turn this off actually. This sculpture, so I'm not going to use that this time. But I'm going to go back to my standard brush, which I have a shortcut to Alt-S. And then I'm going to look at how I want to do this. And what I would like to do is have it in one stroke. I don't want to necessarily do paint, because it's going to get really fat. And I also want to turn the intensity pretty far down to maybe 10. And then when I stroke across here, what it's going to do is it's going to add where the white is and do nothing where the black is. So if I go like this, oops, you know what I did do? I also changed some other stuff we're going to mess with later. We're going to go back to here. Let me go to, cancel. Uh-oh. My Cintiq is off suddenly. Jerk. Go back to stroke, turn off our lazy mouse. And I'm just going to come across here like this. I could probably do a little bit more. And we'll take a look and see how big it gets. That's why I said don't do it too hard. I always feel like I should, but then I realize what it does, so I can do that. And I'll probably turn this down a little. Oh, goodness, it's off. Way off. I'm going to reset this. There, half the strength. I do want this middle part to be a little bit more prominent. Yeah, that worked out pretty good. Let me do this. Oh, my mistake, I did it wrong again. So what we want to do is we want to go up, I gotta use my mouse for this, it's so weird. Go up to transform, turn on lazy mouse, you can push X to get, not lazy mouse, but mirror. And I want it not necessarily in the X, but in the Y, so it's up and down. So when I do this, hopefully, yeah, it did it on both sides for me. And you check it and see if it's okay. I mean, it's okay. It's not great. I would probably spend a lot more time on this kind of stuff, but you know, for what we're doing and for what you're doing, it's a decent little piece. So next thing I'll do is go back to Z to get the controls back for the spotlight. Turn it and hold Shift, and it will snap in little increments. See? I just want it straight up and down. Move it over here. This one's a little bit off because I only made it for the top curve because it's a little bit different. So I'm going to scale this one down. And what I ended up doing, I'll get Z off here. Make sure I'm straight on. What I ended up doing is just kind of not painting past a certain point. So I could get as much of this, but it doesn't have to go all the way. So I'll go back to Z, and I'll come to here. Wherever you click is where it puts the mouse, so that's where it scales from. I'll just pull it in a little bit more, like that. And then, yeah, that works. And now I want to put Z again, so it's back in that position. What I'll probably paint to is like right here on both sides. And I'm gonna have to turn off my symmetry or change it. So I don't want it to be Y anymore, but I do want it to be X. So when I do it here, it'll do it over there. I'm just saving myself some time. So I'm gonna pick a spot right here and go to that one right there. So click in here, go to that one. And if it gets a little bit too loud or noisy, I actually like this better than the last one. You can fix it, but you can, you know, so now a little bit right there. Yeah, that's too much. And then I will now turn off that brush, and I'll come in here and I will do a little bit of cleanup. I'm just going to look at it and say, okay, it's probably too strong. And if I go to my shift, you'll see it's at 87. It may be too much, yeah, too much. So I want to turn down my smooth brush here. So turn it, so weird, turn it down. Just something pretty small so I have control over. It'll take me more time to get to it, but it won't drastically flip it out. That should be doing both sides at the same time. Yep, pretty good. Okay, and then I want to do the top one. So again, we're going to come back to transform, and we're going to switch it back to Y real quick. And then and then I will shift and drag these just to get a little bit. I'm using my mouse right now, so forgive me if it's a little bit weird feeling. Okay, so there you go. Now I've got the roses on there, at least a semblance of them. If you spent more time, obviously you could do it, but you get the idea. So the other thing that we noticed on that picture was that, if I can pull it back up, because I did close it, that was stupid. Look at this one. Is that it's got that rope stuff on the outside, and it's got this. Now what I could do is make my own special brush or whatever to do the outside perfectly and stuff, and then do this. But I just went for a simple route in this case. I went to standard brush. I'm just going to use that, and then if I do this, by default, you see it just does a line. That's not what we want. So I come back to my mouse average. Remember I turned this off. I turn on my lazy mouse again. What you're seeing, why I had it up so high, is because it's going to take two steps, two versions of itself before it makes the next dot. So one more thing I want to do is turn on the transform and make sure I have it set to X as well. So the idea being that when I paint over here, it paints all four. I don't have to paint them all at once. This is how you get some pretty cool designs. So I want to make sure I can see at least a quarter of it, and then try and do, you know, a little bit off the center. This is so weird because it's off. Let's see. Okay. So now it's too low, so I'll turn this back up. And I also turned up the focal stuff, so. And then, yeah, I don't think that's enough. So I will turn this up a little bit more. I'm going to do it down here a little lower because my mouse is, my pen works, it's off, so it works better towards the center. Okay. I turn that up, and oh, I want to make this line a little bit longer too. So I start a little bit past it, so when it does the first ones, it's in the right spot. And you can clean that up, or you can take your time and make it smaller. If I made it a little bit smaller, maybe it would be better. Here, we'll try that one more time here. Yeah. Okay. Turn up my zip, Okay. So now I've got that one. Now the rope one, I was just gonna, what I did last time is I just used that same brush again. What we could do is see what kind of alpha is. They're decent kind of, you know, yeah, I'm not real crazy about any of these for what we're looking to do. Yeah, let's try one. Oops. Yeah, that's definitely not it. Let's try this one. And what I could do is just make a rope pattern and have it meet up and either build a rope pattern or do something like that. But what we'll do for this case, oops, is I'm going to do it this way so I can see it a little bit better. Pull it down, pull it back out. It's too big, so sometimes you gotta shrink these suckers down. Let's try one. So, and what you want to try and do is get this in one stroke, only because getting it lined up again can be tedious. It's not impossible, but it can get in the way. And that's fine. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize I didn't do the top one. Somehow I missed. Yeah, so that's the problem. We can dance for an hour on that beast. Yes, it is a little bit tighter in some areas, but you get the idea. That's now I've got a decent looking frame. I could do, if I wanted to, I could come back in and start doing some work around these pieces, turn on my Damien standard, and then do like some sculpting stuff, or you know, I could turn on, let's say, I don't know if I can do it with my brush being so weird. Let's say spiral. Start doing spirals on them or something, and then they'd all be spiraling together. I'll just do it since I started it. You know, take your time, figure out what you want. Do as I say, not as I do, as it were. Okay. So it's kind of weird. I don't like that last one for sure. Yes. So It's not that it's not working, it's that it is off. So when I click, I'm actually on the dot below it when I'm clicking on it, so you know. I can smooth this out. Make it nicer. Okay, so I mean, you can come in here and really do some work and do some cracking and stuff if you want, but we're going to do most of our damage to this thing, since it's an old frame, inside of Substance. So this is pretty much the frame as I had it. Now, there are those plates that I put on here. I put those in Max and imported them in that way because I had a lot more quick control over it. I could do it on here. I could do a selection. You know, I could do again, without a paintbrush, and you know, I could do a selection area and then extrude it out or whatever I need to do. But we're going to do it this way. Okay, so I have my frame. Pretty much set up. So I just need to make the low poly version of it. So right now I've got one. If I push Control Shift D, it duplicates it. So I'm going to hide the second one, and I'm going to look at this one. This is the one I'm going to use for my low res. This other one I can probably shrink down some polys too. So let's do that real quick. Actually, I'm going to do myself a favor and delete the one I just made. Do as I say, not as I do. Turn that off. It doesn't matter. We're going back up here to plugins. And I'm going to go into Decimation Master, and I can make shortcuts for all this stuff, but you know, you guys can too. Anyway, and then I'm going to pre-process this sucker. And right now, if we hide this, which I can't. Right now it's about 3 million, and while that's fine for Substance, I'm just going to go ahead and shrink it down a little bit because I don't think it needs all that. It's great to have that when you're building, but you don't need it in the end, so you want to bring it back to a reasonable number. Some studios don't even fight with the tries that end up being coming out of here to get it out faster. So now we're down to nothing. Let me hide this though. So it's 3.9, 3.1 million really. So if I just go, let's see what 250 looks like. 250 looks, if we come in here pretty tight, I don't see a difference. Okay, so I'm thinking again. From 3 million to 250. These look like suckers from Octopus. Okay, so 250k works fine. So back out, look at this, it's 250k. Like that. Alright, so now I'm going to Control Shift D. Okay, and we're going to come back in here. And we're going to say, actually, you know what? I'm going to hide this. The other one's hidden already. Oh, that's right, it's not on it. Cool. Gonna click this again, and then I'm gonna drop this one down. I think that when you do that, it keeps the. I'm gonna drop it down to 5% to see what we get. Yeah, it needs to reprocess it when you use the shortcuts. These are cool shortcuts, but if you use them, just realize you gotta reprocess, which isn't bad at 250. Then I'm gonna decimate current down to 5%. And we get this, which is fine. Okay. Yeah, actually that's too little. I won't do that. Let's do this at 20. Yeah. So 50k. Let's do 15. 37k. We're still keeping all our detail. That's cool. We're gonna lose our detail for our low poly, but it's not gonna be here probably. 10%. You can switch back and forth and look at them. Yeah, that works. Because remember, the high res one is the only one that matters. The only reason I'm even fighting with this because I like to have it down to a point that's decent but not completely gone. And what I end up doing to make my low res stuff, and this is for objects as well as characters, is I come down to Z Remesh, I turn off adaptive, and I say half. Let me hide this here. So I got 25K. If I say half, obviously, turn on half and then say go. And it's down to, that's funny, not what I would think. Turn this down. There we go, 12K. So that's still pretty big, but we're still seeing form. Do it again. 6K. There we go. So it's about 3,000. It's still probably pretty high, but we can keep going down. The problem is that we've got this back plane that's really doing where some of this poly is coming from. So at this point, I don't know. I can see how bad it goes at the next one. Yeah, and that's where you want to make sure you decide where it loses those polys. But see, it's got some of this bumpy stuff that works great. So now I'm going to export it. What I can do sometimes is do a quick unwrap on it, but since I'm going to have to delete the back, I might as well just do it inside of Max. So I export, and I leave smoothing groups on and as polys, and then I say export, and then I pick where it's going to be. We're going to call this low underscore new one. That's easy. We're going to go up to the other one, make sure this one's hidden now. Okay, and then do it again. Export, and we'll say frame high, new one. Okay, so we could do some painting, some other crazy stuff inside of here. Still thinking, by the way. But for now, that's pretty much all I was going to do. So let me save this as frames. Okay. I'm going to close it just to save some memory. I just saved you. Okay. So now we go back to Max real quick. And we can hide this one. All we want is the lobe run, and we don't, and we can actually hide all this stuff too. File, import, and then flame. No, we don't need the high. Say okay. And then all we're really going in here for is a couple quick things. We're going to look at some stuff about the polys. I'm going to change this to a more visible color here so we can see that. Delete the subdivs. And then come to materials, just the material on it, make it darker purple. Okay. So if we look at it, it's 6,000, 3,000 polys, but 6,000 tries, which we can get rid of really easy. But first, let's find out how many tries are in the back. So we'll flip it over. We'll go to this modify. We'll go to the poly mode. We'll go to ignore back facing and by angle, and by 45, it's going to grab the whole thing. Well, actually, it didn't. But I'm going to change it to 30 just to be safe, because I don't know if I want that edge gone. I guess I do. So all I'm doing is getting rid of the stuff. This is going to be against the wall, so it doesn't need to have those extra polys. And now we can see that it's dropped it down to 3,000 polys from 6. So it's halved it by just doing that. That's what I mean by what you need and what you don't need. Now, if I really wanted to, and if I wanted to make it more controlled, I could do... And there's a way to do it every other one, but I could do this thing here. Taking a little time, but I mean, like I said, there's a way, and I've seen it done. I'm just not the king of doing it, so I don't want to search around and look for it while I'm doing a video. I'm just gonna grab every other one, oops, real quick, before I take it out of here. In theory, I could even symmetry it, but I want to keep the cutting and the moving and the stuff down to a minimum while I'm inside of Max. I just don't like messing around with too much, because Zbrush and Max and other programs can get weird, or Max I should say, blaming this one. Well, Zbrush doesn't really have units. So every other one almost done. If anybody wants to look up that way to do selections every other edge, there's a way to do it. I've seen it, like I said, I've seen it done. It's really cool, but every time I look for it, it doesn't work. And it was one of those tutorials where the guy went click, click, and it was done. And I was like, hey, what happened? Now I could have dropped this down inside of Zbrush again, but I just wanted to have the control to make sure what I was doing was gonna keep the form closer to what I wanted. Plus I wanted to make sure the back wasn't calculated in, like I said. I guess I could bring this back into ZBrush right now and just down-res it from there. But I'm already here and I want to unwrap it in here. There's a few things I want to talk about unwrapping. Unwrapping in this case, of course. So Alt-R, and it was in now it's you know, 1700, 870. So that's reasonable. I mean, it's a dense enough for now. Okay, so for unwrapping, you know, if I was gonna know that, if I had the time and I wanted to do this, any place where there's a break in the texture, any break in the object, like any of these hard edges, any of these convex edges, or concave edges instead of convex, anything that goes in, like this could be one and this could be, I could separate them out. Like this would be a nice place to separate it out. But for the case of this frame, I mean, honestly, we could spend days doing this just perfect, and I'm doing it for so long, I'm tired of fighting with it all the time. So I'm going to show you a quick hack, and you're going to see that it works, and I'll show you it works. What happens is you lose some resolution in some places, and others, I mean, you get more in others, but, and there's some distortion, but it's such a small amount that it's really not a big deal. Let me turn this stupid off. So I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to see how it's a big circle. If I did the old-fashioned way and just did cylinder or sphere or whatever, and then did that, I'd get something close to that. What you want to do is you want to push this button right here. It's called Quick Planar Map, and it'll plane it. And the reason I do this instead of the other ones is because it makes it the right proportions. That's a huge deal. Then I bring it in and I just say relax. And what we can do real quick is we'll come in here, we'll throw a checker pattern on it, and for whatever reason, Max has, in its infinite wisdom, has decided that you have to go off checker pattern to put it back on. So there's the checker pattern. The other thing about breaking that mesh up is that the wood on this, you can't really see the grain on it. So, you know, if I was going to do this, I'd figure out how they made these, if they made them out of one piece of wood, or if there's just places they covered them up under the flowers or whatever. Probably what they did. But since they made it so the grain's not visible, I wasn't too worried about it, and we're going to make it old and beat up. Okay, so I'm just going to start relax. You can see it's moving. It's doing a little moving. I could break it up and try and do it flat and everything, but honestly, these are so close anyway that I just don't fight with it, so I'll stop at that point. I mean, these are really close to square, and if I look down here, they don't go off the side weird or anything. So, I mean, there's a little bit of a bowing right there and all that, but that's fine. There's no reason for it not. The other thing I want to do while I'm in here is make those plates. So, the one problem we're going to have making the plates right now is I'm not exactly sure where everything is, where those flowers are. So what I did in the last case is, and I'll show you how to do that, and we'll bring some stuff out of Substance back into Max to get the plates exactly in the right spot, and then we'll go back into Substance, and I'll show you how to save the work and stuff like that. Alright, and I'll see you in the next video. I'm going to change this to Edible Poly real quick. And then export it. This time I'm going to export it as FBX too. So I'm going to keep it exactly as I exported it before. Export selected. And I'm going to say, this is the reason I named it number 1, is so I could have the original and the new one. Okay. And that's it.